Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I am talking about haunted places in the U.S. As always, you can find all episodes of the show along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. There's many ways to support the show. You can always share the show with others and rate and review it on your favorite podcast platform. You can check out the Patreon feed and get all the extra content there for as little as $1 a month. You can also check out the merchandise store and get different kinds of shirts and some other items there. More to come in the future with designs made by friends of the show. And support is never expected but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows. Also, please support friends of the show. Of course, that would be Jen, the Arcane Observer, who has her own channel and is also the co-host of this show on Saturdays whenever possible. And Michael Strange of Trouble Minds Radio and the Trouble Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear all kinds of amazing shows 24/7, along with my own, online and for free. So, I believe that takes care of all of that. A couple of things I always like to mention for these haunted places shows. Whatever information I have may be out of date, so make sure you look into the options for visiting a place. Excuse me. Before you go there, to make sure it's still okay, as things can change and owners can change, and so um, yeah, and I don't ever recommend trespassing for all kinds of reasons. And basically, how this goes is I get a summary written up uh, for each of these places, and I share a couple of articles for each location in the episode description. So let's get back to these summaries here. We are on the Johnston Felton Hay House, which is in a town. I guess it's called Macon, Macon, Macon. Uh, so, and it's in Georgia, and it's a renowned historic mansion known for both its distinctive architecture and persistent reports of paranormal activity. Historical background. Construction began in 1855 and was completed in 1859 for William Butler Johnston and his wife, Anne Tracy Johnston, inspired by Italian Renaissance style after their grand tour of Europe. The mansion, often called the Palace of the South, features 18,000 square feet, 24 rooms, and technological luxuries unusual for its time, including hot and cold running water, central heat, gas lighting, a speaker tube, and even a French lift, which is a type of early elevator. Only two families occupied the home: the Johnston and Felton families, 1859 to 1926, and the Hay family, 1926 to 1962. So those are the two families. Each contributed to updates, uh, furnishings, and landscaping, with the Hay family adding the driveway and gardens. Reported hauntings. The Hay House has a long-standing reputation for ghostly encounters, making it a frequent feature on local ghost tours. And this is still the Johnston Felton Hay House. The apparition of an elderly woman in mid 1800s dress is seen wandering the hallways. She sometimes taps on glass, slams doors, causes footsteps, and moans in the master bedroom. Visitors have reported cold spots on staircases, the sensation of breathing over their shoulder, and unexplained noises at night. Some believe the ghost may be Mrs. Mary Ellen Johnston Felton, but the identity is not confirmed. Reports also mention the playful spirits of children believed to be uh, connected to the Johnston family. The Georgia Trust, which runs the property as a museum today, publicly avoids discussing ghost stories. Yet many experiences are informally shared by visitors, former staff, and local guides. Paranormal status. The house is considered one of the most haunted sites in Georgia, uh, and is open for public tours, with its haunted history contributing to its status as a major local landmark. Activity frequently escalates during renovations, which is common, not in every situation, but a lot, with more reports of sightings and unexplained phenomena. So, again, just more details here. It says it was built from 1855 to 1859, an Italian Renaissance Revival style. It's going over the owners, which we already talked about that, and talks about, as far as paranormal goes, apparitions, footsteps, cold spots, unexplained noises, and so let's see here. I believe that covers that location. Yeah, we're done with that one. So another mansion, and it's amazing how many of those have reports of activity. Um, I wonder what the ratio of like mansions compared to small homes would be, as far as how many of them are haunted versus not for each type. If it's like there's a connection there, if there's one has more than other or not, I'd be curious to know that. Of course, it's impossible to know that, but um, still, I think it'd be neat to find that out if possible. Moving on to, let's see here. We're moving on to a cemetery. Yeah, looking at the chat here, Don says the house is so nice they don't want to leave. And I mean, it sounds funny, but also, like I always say, there's a lot of people that have an idea of what the afterlife should look like, but how do we all know? I do think that some people, if they do love a place enough, their version of a happy, peaceful afterlife is to stay in that location, whatever it may be. So, not all cases, but at least it seems like in some cases that's the way it goes, because you hear about that. You don't. Sometimes hauntings or apparitions or ghosts, they're seen or heard, but they're not necessarily trying to get attention. They're just happy to be there. So it really is. It's not heard about as much because, of course, like I said, like I always say, um, horror movies and paranormal reality shows, um, they want to focus on the scary things, but it doesn't always have to be scary. Moving on to Oakland Cemetery in Atlanta, Georgia. Um, and this is the city's oldest public burial ground and an important historic landmark known for its impressive Victorian architecture and persistent ghost stories. Historic background. Oakland Cemetery was established in 1850 with a purchase of 6 acres east of the city, initially known as Atlanta or City Cemetery. The name Oakland was adopted in 1872 for its abundant oak trees. Over the years, the cemetery expanded to 48 acres, making it one of Atlanta's largest green spaces. It was designed as a rural garden cemetery reflecting Victorian aesthetics and the garden cemetery movement seen across the U.S. Sections were developed for African Americans, Jewish burials, Confederate and Union soldiers, and paupers, reflecting Atlanta's diverse history. Notable burials include author Margaret Mitchell, golfer Bobby Jones, Atlanta mayors, different mayors of the city, Georgia governors, Civil War generals, and thousands of other citizens. Oakland Cemetery is listed on the National Register of Historic Places and is managed by the Historic Oakland Foundation. Haunting and paranormal claims. Uh, Margaret Mitchell Marsh's grave marker in Oakland Cemetery, Atlanta, uh, is it's frequently cited as one of Atlanta's most locations with frequent ghost tours and unofficial ghost stories focusing on the cemeteries which passed. Common reports include sightings of shadow figures and apparitions among the mausoleums, especially near the Confederate section and historical monuments. Visitors describe hearing footsteps, voices, laughter, crying, and even music when none should occur, mainly at dusk or during tours. Some paranormal tales specifically mention the spirits of Civil War soldiers and 19th century citizens wandering through older sections of the cemetery. The grave of Margaret Mitchell is a frequent focus of ghostly legends, with some claiming strange energy or fleeting images near her tomb. So, um, it's present use is for historical tours, ghost walks, public park. It's a public park managed by the Historic Oakland Foundation. So, and yeah, that's it for that one. Excuse me. So I'm looking at the chat here again. Uh, yeah, that's yeah, it makes sense then. So Dawn says I feel the same about my small house um, as liking it and or being happy there. So uh, moving on to the old Candler, Candler Hospital. And at first I thought it might be Chandler, but no, that's the right name. And this is a hospital in Savannah, Georgia. It's one of the state's oldest hospitals and is widely regarded as a location with a rich history and a uh, persistent haunted legends. The hospital was chartered in 1804, making it Georgia's first hospital and one of the oldest continuously operating hospitals in the United States until it moved locations in 1980. It originally operated as the Savannah Poorhouse and Hospital, serving sick seamen and impoverished locals. During its tenure on uh, Gaston Street, the hospital treated Civil War soldiers and yellow fever victims, with its history marked by community tragedies. The hospital was renamed in 1931 after Warren A. Candler, following support from the Candler family of Coca-Cola fame. Haunted reputation. Uh, Old Candler Hospital is uh, farmed locally for its, famed locally for its hauntings, fueled by the high number of deaths from yellow fever epidemics and, of course, tragic Civil War incidents. Uh, Underground tunnels run beneath the hospital, and Forsyth Park, reportedly used to secretly transport bodies of epidemic victims to prevent public panic. Several legends describe lingering spirits in those tunnels. That's really common. I've noticed that for a lot of places. If they have tunnels, then there's usually reports of activity in them. Ghostly apparitions are said to haunt the abandoned building, with accounts of a woman in white in a hospital gown, basically, seen near windows, and men dressed as Civil War soldiers, appearing before vanishing. The hospital's psychiatric ward is notorious in local lore for tales of inhumane treatment, including shock therapy, which adds to the stories of suffering and unrest. Paranormal tales and folklore. The Candler oak tree, sometimes called the hanging tree, is tied to grim stories and believed by some to be a site of executions or burials. Some legends suggest patients may have been mistakenly transported alive to the tunnels, with their cries ignored, fueling beliefs in haunted echoes and restless spirits. Police patrols and visitors have reported odd sights and eerie sensations in the corridors and tunnels since its abandonment. Excuse me. Old Candler Hospital remains a key site in Savannah's haunted history, with its blend of documented tragedy and enduring ghost stories, um, making it a frequent stop for local tours and paranormal enthusiasts. Again, as I always say, make sure you check on whether or not you are allowed to go there, supposed to go there. Yeah, yep. Poorhouses were awful too. Seems that way every time I ever hear of one. It's never. I mean, people did what they could. Not everyone there was bad necessarily as far as people that were running it, but also there were some bad ones. So, um, let's see here. I think we can get through one more. We have another hospital here. Um, this is Central State Hospital in Milledgeville, Georgia. And it was once the largest mental health institution in the U.S. That's amazing. I never heard about that. And is known for both its complex history and its haunted reputation. Historical background. Founded in 1842 as the Georgia State, I'm not even going to say the rest of the name of that place. It's an asylum. It was established during a wave of 19th century social reforms to provide institutional care for the mentally ill. The hospital rapidly expanded, and at its peak by the 1960s, the sprawling 1,750-acre campus included roughly 200 buildings and housed more than 12,000 patients. Overcrowding, underfunding, and primitive treatments, uh, such as they go through some here, which we're not going to go into, um, marked much of its history, especially in the early and mid 20th century. Institutional abuses and neglect were publicized in exposés during the 1950s, ultimately leading to reforms and a steady decrease in patient population. The site contains about 35,000 graves scattered in cemetery plots, many unmarked, reflecting the anonymity and abandonment many patients faced both in life and in death. Haunted reputation. Local folklore and urban legends claim Central State Hospital is haunted by the spirits of former patients who suffered and died there, especially in the abandoned buildings and burial grounds. The property's cemeteries including Cedar Lane, are said to be the sites of uneasy spirits, with sightings of apparitions and mysterious voices reported by visitors. Tales and reported experiences include unexplained noises, cold spots, shadowy figures, and ghostly apparitions in the deserted wards and underground tunnels. The secrecy, isolation, and history of mistreatment have made Central State the hospital a major stop for ghost tours, paranormal investigators, and those interested in dark history. Let's see here. So, I think that'll do it for that one. And let me see how long the next one is. We're actually moving on to, that was the last location in Georgia. And let's see here. So we're moving on to Hawaii, which means that I'm going to be mispronouncing terribly the names, the words, for the next several stories, and I apologize for that. But we'll start with this one. We'll see if we can. You know what? We only have like 2 minutes left. I hate to really start one now in the middle of this. I mean, so close to the end here of this show. So we're gonna leave it where it is with that. But yeah, I'm really looking into all these places. The patterns are just they're everywhere. Um, every just about every asylum that I've found that has reports of paranormal activity, it has a history before that of there being terrible things done. Um, and in some cases, there are things that were done because someone out there thought that things were going to work, and when they didn't work, and there's just some terrible things that were done just because some people were terrible. Um, but so these places, I mean, if you all have been listening to this series so far, I've covered asylums in several states, and I'm sure there'll be more as I go through the rest of the U.S. Um, so it's yeah. Dawn in the chat says the worst happened to those with no voice. So that's really common with asylums and even just hospitals. Not that hospitals, not necessarily the ones that were just devoted to mental health, but hospitals. I mean, there's all kinds of accounts of hospitals having activity in them as well, and you hear that about them when they're open, but then you also hear about that after they've been closed, the buildings themselves. So um, it's really odd. I forget now. I can't remember if I already shared them or not. But there was one point where there was two locations that had been hotel. I think I already covered them. Had been hotels and were I already covered them. Were turned into hospitals during World War II before going back to being hotels later. So, and hotels are another type of location that I really seem to be active. That's all the time we have for this episode. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.